Boker Tov, Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome back to the Aliyah a day. We are going to be looking at the Tabernacle today in Parasha Terumah, which is, of course, the entire portion is really about the Tabernacle. Today we'll be looking at a few elements of the Tabernacle and see what we can glean from things we find and insights that we discover and things of that nature. So welcome aboard. Glad you're here. I hope you're having an amazing day and being blessed, being encouraged, being strengthened. And I pray that today is a day of good news and good fortune for you, that shalom should overtake you and that your goodness should overtake you. As we dive in today, let us welcome everybody aboard the Aliyah train. Please find your seats. Keep your arms inside the car and make sure that all of your seats and trays are in their upright position as we take off for our journey today. Welcome to you, Yitro. Glad you're here. Boker Tov, Elisheva. Good morning, Tirza and Yonina, who's formerly from Georgia. Good to see you this morning. Good morning to you, Sergio. Looks like I've missed some people because I know this is not the. Let me go back over here. I had to refresh my screen, and I think maybe I might have lost some people when I did that. Oh, that's me talking to myself. Let's not do that. I did lose some people. Hello. Yes, okay, we're back. Hello, Chris and Crystal. Good to see you. Good morning, Mr. Clay and Kayla. Boker Tov to you. Good morning, Donna and Hepzibah and Shoshana and Anna. Boker Tov to you. Hello, Samuel and Kimba Mintz. Boker Tov to all of you. Hello, Lantern Signals and Brenda and Roy and Sarah and Shane. Hello. Hello, Amana and Ma Perkins. Good morning, Levi. Good to see you, sir. Good morning, Jean and Jacqueline and Melissa. Good morning, Leah and Shmuel. Boker Tov. Good morning, Zek and Yigal. Good morning, Ona and Kara. And good to see everybody this morning. Who else do we have? I think Yochanan and Tirza. Boker Tov. Good to see you this morning. Hey, listen, I want to tell everybody to be sure and be a part of our Purim celebrations. If you can be here in person, that would be fantastic. It really would be. We have Purim is coming up. Our Purim party is coming up not a week from Sunday, and then the following Monday is the Megillah reading. We're doing things slightly in reverse this year, only because the Megillah reading comes in the first part of the week. So we don't want to wait a whole week to have our party. So we have the party on Sunday, and then we have our Megillah reading on Monday night. It's going to be fun. There are some surprises. I'm not going to tell you what they are. There can be some surprises. You're going to be amazed. It's going to be so amazing. You're going to say to yourself, how have I lived all these many years without this? I'm not overselling. It's actually, it is what it's going to be. It's going to be amazing, and I am glad that you're going to be a part of it. Today, we're going to be talking about the tabernacle. We'll take a little bit of a tour of the tabernacle. And this is the inside. This is like obviously a representation, inside view of the tabernacle that you can see on your screen here. And I want to show you this picture because I want to point out some elements to it. As you can see, this is the inside, the holy place. It's supposed to be the depiction of the inside of the holy place of the tabernacle. What you notice here is that inside this space, there is to the right a table of showbread with the unleavened loaves on it. And then to the left is the menorah. In front of the parochet is the golden altar. And beyond the parochet would be, of course, the Ark of the Covenant. In this picture is also depicted the high priest. That's the one wearing the blue ephod, which is actually not blue, although it is blue, but it's, to be specific, his ephod there is entirely techelet, which is the same color that is on the tzitzit. The person standing next to them is just a regular priest with regular priestly clothes on. Notice that their heads are covered, because whenever we're in the presence of the king, we cover our heads, which is why we cover our heads. I want you to also notice in this picture that the foundation of the tabernacle, both ends, both the holy place and the holy of holies, as well as um, the outer courtyard, was built upon bricks, if you will, of solid silver. So you'll notice the foundation pieces. Now, this is depicted in a certain way, and there might be other artist renditions that depicted it. Excuse me. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Depict, thank you, in a different way. But these dovetailed together, according to some thoughts. But the point I really want to make is not so much what they look like necessarily or how they were made, but rather that they were made of solid silver. And this silver, by the way, came from the silver half shekel, which, by the way, before I forget, customarily, traditionally, we give the quote unquote silver half shekel before the Megillah reading at Purim time. That's the traditional time. And what we have been doing, and many people do for years, in order to symbolize this half shekel, we give 5 half-dollar coins, and everybody gives it, right? 5 half-dollar coins. So just keep that in mind when you come to the Megillah. But anyway, these are made with the atonement money. And therefore, what is the message to us when we're talking about the tabernacle? The tabernacle sits upon a foundation of silver. What does silver represent? Well, it represents atonement. It represents redemption. Therefore, you could make the argument that the tabernacle sits upon a foundation of repentance. So therefore, we cannot begin our worship of Hashem unless we have a repentant heart. A repentant heart. I also want you to notice that the walls are gold. Now, this is really interesting because the walls are made of acacia wood and they were overlaid with gold. So you have the when you think about the tabernacle in the wilderness, I bet that many of you, and it's okay, it's probably natural. You probably just think there was a tent in the desert, and there was, and that tent was made out of gold and silver. Many years ago, the price that I'm about to give you is going to be probably double or more because I did this calculation probably a long time ago, probably 15 years ago at least. And I just went through to the best of my ability and I calculated using, the sources. I calculated how much gold, how much silver, the different jewels that you see there on the high priest breastplate, which by the way, the Temple Institute one time, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, came to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We went to a special event they were having, and the rabbi who's the leader of the Temple Institute brought with him the robe, the breastplate of the high priest that they had made, the one that they made and they have ostensibly for the high priest whenever there is a high priest. So this one had the real gold and the real jewels, and there were law enforcement there to make sure that nobody ran off with it. And at the time, and again, this was probably 20 years ago, the rabbi told us that breastplate was worth at least $75,000 at the very least. So anyway, I did a whole calculation of everything, and I came up with a number that was in the ballpark of $20 million at the time, which we probably at least double that now today. So what if you wanted to remake the tabernacle with the gold and the silver and the jewels and all the copper, because copper is expensive too, it would cost you today probably close to 40 mil to actually make it. That's probably a conservative number. So I want you to think about that with respect to what the majesty of the tabernacle. And I also want you to think about the fact that in Judaism, there is an idea of hadar hamitzvot, to beautify the mitzvahs. To every mitzvah that you do, you should make it as beautiful as possible. It's interesting because in the other religious world, people usually complain, oh, why you have to spend that much money on a building? You don't need that much. It doesn't need that much, and people, like, you think about, like, in church world, a lot of times in the church world, it's like, well, we want to get carpet and we want to put brand new carpet in the church. And so what would happen a lot of times? Well, let's go. What's the least expensive carpet we can get? Because, it's a church. We don't want to spend too much on the carpet. We want to be budget friendly. But for their own house, the people will get top of the line stuff, right? So when it comes to the church, it's like, well, we need paper goods for the church. Well, let's go get the cheapest paper goods we can. But for their own house, they're buying China. The mentality is the reverse in Judaism. We don't beautify our own homes greater than we beautify the house of God, right? So when you look at this, I want you to think about that old mindset of, oh, just have an old build. The building doesn't matter. Well, apparently that God didn't think so, because when it came time to build him a tent in the wilderness, he wanted it made of gold and silver, and that's what you have here. Okay. I also want to point out that here in the holy place, we have three pieces of furniture. We have the table of showbread. We have the golden altar, which is the altar of incense. And then we have, of course, the menorah. In the book of Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews puts the golden altar beyond the veil into the Holy of Holies. It's remarkable because he misplaces the golden altar. It is a huge, glaring mistake, one of several that is made. And it's really undeniable that it is, in fact, a mistake. And so, yeah, it's just really crazy that is the situation that you have there. But I just wanted to point this out, that the golden altar is inside the holy place. This is why that one fact makes the book of Hebrews not scripture. Okay. And so I just wanted to point this out, that this is the reason that we have, this idea about Hebrews being false, is because, it's false. I was trying to bring up another picture here, and I don't know if I can. I was trying to select it, and it would not let me select it. I'm a little frustrated about that. I don't know why that is the case, but we'll come back to that if we can. I also want to point this out to you as well. We're going to get to some insights in a second, but this is just kind of show and tell. This is a picture of the menorah. This is the actual menorah that is presently in Jerusalem. And again, ostensibly ready to be put into the temple. This is what the menorah, it looks like, made of gold, solid gold, in fact. In this case, solid gold. There's no wood in the menorah. But this is what the 7-branch menorah looks like. And it is on display in the Jewish quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. It used to be where you went up the steps from the Kotel all the way up to the Jewish quarter, and they moved it, I think because they're doing so much construction in that area right now. They moved it to in front of the synagogue in the square of the old city. And I have a video here, and I'm going to play it. I think it'll play. And it's me, and this is in 2022. I was in Jerusalem with the Rebbeinu, of course, and I took a little video of this menorah, and so you can see it. So I'm going to play this, and I think the audio should work just well enough. God, Bezrat Hashem. Shalom from the Jewish quarter here in the old city of Jerusalem. Standing behind me is the golden menorah that has presumably been prepared for the temple. Maybe built, actually, maybe brought down from Shemayim by the Mashiach soon in our days. So when you think about a menorah, I'm gonna get a little bit closer here so you can see it in the film. Less about me, more about the menorah. There you go. When you think about the menorah in the temple, this is more or less what it would look like. And the temple was known as the light of the world, and the menorah specifically was called the light of the world, which of course represents the Torah, because in the temple, the only source of light was the menorah. And in fact, the way that the temple windows were made, it was made so that the light would spread out to the whole world, hence the light of the world, the Holy Torah, which is our menorah, even Messiah Yeshua. All right, so I want you to see that video that's live and in person. They still have it on display there, and that is what the menorah looks like. As I said, I was trying to pull up a picture of the. Go back here, see if this one will work. I don't know why the picture that I would have is not wanting to be selected, but I was trying to bring up a picture of the best depiction of the Ark of the Covenant, which for some reason is not letting me do that. I don't know why. But the Temple Institute has a depiction of the Ark of the Covenant, what it's supposed to look like. But the Ark of the Covenant, of course, was a box made of acacia wood. Everything in the tabernacle was made of acacia wood and then overlaid with gold. And so the Ark of the Covenant is just that. It was made of acacia wood and overlaid with gold. What's interesting about acacia wood is that it's basically what's the word I'm looking for? It's impervious to rot. It's bug resistant. It's a very hard wood. And in addition, it's actually in antiquity, even still today, acacia was used for flavoring and for, believe it or not, ground up acacia for flavoring and for healing. It had healing properties. Also, some people don't know this about acacia, but acacia is also a thorn bush, and it has very long, very um, sharp thorns that come with it. Now, some people surmise, we don't know for sure, but some people surmise that the crown of thorns that the Romans made for the Messiah might have been made of acacia, which would, of course, would have been fitting. What's also interesting is that the Romans crucified tens of thousands of people in the course of history. Crucifixions took place in various ways: on a pole, on a cross, on an X, on a tree, on a wall. Uh, the idea of the Christian cross symbol, it's all phony baloney, plastic banana, good time, rock and roll. It was Constantine, the blasphemous heretic psychopath, that gave people the cross as a symbol of Christianity. The Christian cross is not indigenous to belief in the Messiah. It's completely bogus. We have no idea what the crucifixion device looked like. And what's remarkable is that last time I checked, which has been years ago, archaeologists have never found a crucifix. So that's interesting. Tens of thousands of people crucified by the Romans, and we haven't found the guillotine, so to speak, right? However, they did find a crucified victim, and the bones of whom were in an ossuary. And on that victim, and pardon me for the graphic nature of this, by the way, if you're really kind of sensitive, you might want to turn the channel for just a quick second. But anyway, the bones of this victim, the ankle bone still had the nail in the bone, and between the bone and the head of the nail was a piece of wood. And the purpose of this, they would do that so that the person could not wiggle their feet off of the nail because of the wood that intervened between the head of the nail and the feet. I know it's very gruesome, but that's unfortunate reality. What's interesting is that the wood that they found was acacia. And this victim, by the way, was from Israel. It was a Jewish victim. So I just want to throw that out, that it's interesting that there is this acacia connection with the tabernacle. So I wanted to give you that scene. Sorry I wasn't able to bring up that other picture. I don't know why it wouldn't select those pictures. I'm going to give it another quick try here just because. Let's try this one just to see if it's going to let me do it or not. I do not know why it's not letting me do that. There it is. Oh, praise God. Baruch Hashem. So here is the picture I was trying to pull up. And this depiction comes from the Temple Institute in Israel. Again, the Temple Institute is not the gospel. They do a lot of research, but not everybody agrees with them. You should know that. So please don't think that the Temple Institute in Israel is like the authority and that every Orthodox Jew agrees with them. They don't. I just want to make that clear. They're just an organization of Jews, of Orthodox Jews, and they spend their time researching things, but it doesn't mean necessarily that their renditions are 100,000% fact. However, this is the best guess of what the Ark of the Covenant looked like. Notice the cherubim that are there. The ancient sources say that in the days of the temple, when the Shekinah was manifest and present in the temple, that the cherubim there that you're looking at in this picture um, were animated. They were animated, and that the wings flapped, and that they sang psalms. They sang Tehillim when this was going on. And so it's quite remarkable. Also here, you see in the picture a depiction of the again, of the interior of the holy place and the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this picture in the lower right is actually a picture of the temple, but the layout is the same. But I want you to notice here in the temple picture, the red lines that you see there in front of the Holy Ark. What that is depicting is that there were two parochets, which is interesting from a Messiah point of view. I'll come to that in a second. But there were two parochets, and they were very, very thick, and they were put together so that on one parochet, the one facing the holy place, the priest would enter in. There was an opening that he would enter in on the left-hand side. And then he would walk down the length of the two parochot, and then he would enter into the Holy of Holies on the right-hand side of the second parochet. Now, this, of course, only occurred on Yom Kippur. The question is, why is it set up this way? Why doesn't the priest just kind of, go through the veil, so to speak, right? And the answer is because on Yom Kippur, when the priest was needing to go through the veil, okay, that what happens if I do this? No, you don't want that. Never mind. Sorry. Let me come back to this. Sorry about that. When he goes through the veil, he has his hands full of holy censers that are full of incense. In other words, his hands are not free to go through a veil. Okay. So therefore he needs to be able to walk so that he can hold on to the holy censers with his hands and not have to utilize his hands to go through a curtain. Okay. Number one. Number two, in the book of Hebrews, which we've already established is a book of blasphemy, heresy, and error, it talks about the veil being torn. And a lot of Christians have interpreted that to mean, based on nothing, by the way, that means that we're no longer barred from God's presence, which of course is silly because we've never been barred from God's presence, and that's not the purpose of the parochet. Anyway, the purpose of the parochet was not to keep us out, but to keep us alive. And not just us, but really the priests, because no man can look upon the glory of God and live. Now it says that in the gospel account that the veil was torn. Say veil. Veil is what? Who's going to catch it, I wonder? Say veil. Look at the picture, and how many red lines are there? Now, what do you notice? I'm just going to give you a second to answer here. As you're looking at the picture, what do you notice about the veil? I'm just going to give you just a quick second. The veil was torn and in the temple at the crucifixion. So I've told you, by the way, just as you're thinking this through and you're trying to use your Jedi powers to determine the answer, that according to the Midrash Rabbah of Kohelet, is not Kohelet, I'm sorry, it wasn't the Midrash Rabbah of Lamentations, Eka, sorry, not Kohelet, but Eka. It says that the veil, the parochet, represents the garment of God. Okay, the garment of God. That's right, Sarhio, the garment of God. What you guys are missing this. It's really fairly obvious, and when I say it, you're gonna be like, "Whoa, yeah, of course." How many lines are there in front of the Ark of the Covenant? There are 2 lines, which represent what? 2 parochets. The gospel says that the veil, say veil, was torn. What does that mean? The veil was torn. What does that mean? So think about it. I'm not going to let you off of this. Think about this. What does it mean that the veil, when it says the veil was torn, you're looking at 2 lines. What does that mean? Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Only one veil was torn. Bullseye. Karen, thank you very much. Exactly. Only one veil was torn. Yes, Anna, a single veil. So what does that mean? Well, guess what? That can't mean that the tearing of the veil meant that we have full access to God now, which of course is absurd, as we've already pointed out, but it can't mean that, right? Right. Why? Because there's what? A second veil left. Exactly. Now, there are 2 veils. There's 2 messiahs. I'm just going to go quickly with this, okay? There's 2 veils, 2 messiahs. The first messiah is the suffering messiah. Therefore, he's the one that got torn. The second veil represents the second messiah, which is Mashiach ben David, which he doesn't get torn. So only one veil got torn because only one messiah suffers. And in order to get into the Holy of Holies, you have to walk through the 2 messiahs. Isn't that beautiful? But that's the picture I wanted you to see. And I'm very grateful that this picture came up. And while I'm at it, let me see if I can get another picture to come up here. I don't know if I will be able to, but we'll find out and see if it, yes, thank God it did. Praise God. This is a picture now of no, I don't want to do that. Excuse me, guys. I'm playing with the settings to see if I can get a better rendition of this. But anyway, this is the depiction of the tabernacle in the wilderness. I just wanted you to see it from an aerial view. What you have, of course, is the bronze altar out front with the ramp, not steps, but a ramp that goes up to the altar. Between the altar and the holy place is the shiny laver. It's being depicted there as just a big bowl, but in other depictions I've seen, they're probably more accurate. It looks more like a fountain. The shiny laver actually was made of the mirrors of the Jewish women, and it was considered a great mitzvah of the women because, there's few things more precious to a woman than a mirror. And then I don't say that to be, tongue in cheek. It's actually rather true that women like mirrors and they want their mirrors. And then, it all has to do with beauty and making sure they look beautiful, which of course they do. And it's normal and natural, But so to give up your mirror was a big deal. And it's not like you could go to Walmart in the wilderness and I'll give you this mirror. I'm gonna go to Target and get another one. Can't really do that. Amazon did not deliver in the wilderness, contrary to popular belief. So the purpose of the mirrors, however, was so that the priest could look at themselves and make sure they didn't have any blemishes, any spots, any things of that nature. So when they went in, they would be pure of that. So you have the shiny laver, which is why we wash our hands in the morning, so that we can, throughout the day, I should say, so that we can be in service to the King, and then we would walk through the curtain to go into the holy place. Of course, I keep saying we, but really this pertains to uh, the priest. Notice the cloud above the tabernacle. The cloud is coming from the Holy of Holies, which is actually the place of the Ark of the Covenant. So it's not representing smoke from an altar, because the altar is out front. The smoke there is representing the Shekinah of God, and that's what I wanted to point out there as well. So you could say, well, the fragrant incense, of course, was there as well, but that's not exactly what it was depicting in that particular picture. This is just another picture of the inside, done a little bit differently, different angle, of what the inside of the tabernacle or the temple would have looked like, with the embroidery on the paroquet and what have you. So the cakes, remember, were actually made unleavened, and then whenever the priest they would change out the loaves according to Scripture every Shabbat. So not every Tuesday, not every Wednesday, but every Shabbat. And of course, when they would have the bread, they would consume what they had removed, and then what they had consumed was as if it were fresh baked. So it's just amazing. Amazing. Lantern Signal says there's a nutcase out there that says that according to the Hebrew language, the tabernacle is round. Well, not according to those of us who actually speak Hebrew. So people are crazy, y'all. And I've never seen a depiction in any source whatsoever that has the tabernacle as round, at all. Having said that, the word for church comes from the word for circus, which of course is round. So that's interesting, which explains a lot. But I move on. So that was a tour of the tabernacle. Shmuel says that $20 million 20 years ago would be 37.2 mil today. Okay, so I was pretty close to doubling that number. Pretty close. So 20 mil to do that. It's funny, just as an aside, there were a number of years, of course, when we were first starting out, we did not have our own building. And I can tell you, my wife can tell you, Keturah can tell you, yeah, those were hard years. Those were hard years. Not having your own building, having to go in and go out, having to rent places. It was hard. We were also known as the Wandering Jews, and we used to joke and say, if you can find us, then you deserve to be here. And I would hear some people sometimes say, oh, the building doesn't matter. God doesn't care about the building. And I used to think to myself, boy, that is a Peril J. June thought. That's coming from somebody who doesn't have a clue what they're talking about, who's never been in this situation. Don't ever take advice from idiots. You're welcome. This is a public service announcement, and I want you to write this down. I'm serious. Get out a pen. Write this down. And say to yourself, write down, do not take advice from morons. Okay, that was kind of unsweet. Let's say it differently. Do not take advice from people who've never done what they're advising you about. I once got advice one time from somebody about the way in which I was delivering my messages. I asked the person if they'd ever given a public address before, ever in their life. And the answer, of course, was no. And so I declined to accept their advice. But I thank them for their input. Don't take advice from people who've never done anything before. But I can tell you that people that say that don't know what they're talking about, because actually the building is crucial, and it is super, super important. And not having it was a major bummer. in so many different ways. And thank God we have it today. And we try to make the building as beautiful as we possibly can. But if we were trying to do this building is not worth 37 million. I sure wish it was. But it's certainly not worth 37 million. But that tent in the wilderness was 37 approximately. I'm just guessing. It's a educated guess. 37 mil today. Probably more, but at least that. I'm going to read a couple of insights here in the time we have remaining. This has to do with the Ark of the Covenant. This comes from Rabbi Monk's commentary. By the way, did you like the tour through the sanctuary and the visual effects? I hope you did. So it says, they shall make an ark. Okay. The first command concerning the construction of the tabernacle was to make the Aron, the ark. It contained the light of the world for the tablets of the law, and the Torah rested inside. So this is important because one of the things is that the Ark of the Covenant is referred to as the light of the world. And the reason it's called the light of the world is because of the Torah that's inside. So you have several things in the tabernacle, and when I say tabernacle, just know that I also mean temple because they're they're synonymous. The ark is the light of the world. The menorah was sometimes referred to as the light of the world, and then the tabernacle itself was called the light of the world. And then, of course, the Torah is the light of the world. So the light of the world pertains to all of those things. But the common denominator is that it's the Torah, ultimately. So it says, similar to creation, where light precedes everything else, so too the allegorical light of Torah comes first. The ark, the Aron, it has been pointed out, is related to or, that is light. So the word Aron is similar to the word for light, which is or. The Aron is comparable in a smaller format to what light is to the universe as a whole. It is the source of truth called upon to dispel the darkness that obscures the spirit of man. So one insight or some other insights related to this point out that when God was giving the instructions to build a tabernacle, the first thing that he brought forth, so to speak, was make the ark. And to a builder, this might seem a bit out of order, because what if I came to you and I said, hey, we're going to build a house. We're going to build a house. And you're like, okay, great. Let's build the house. I said, all right. First of all, build a cabinet. Wait, what? Yeah, build a house. We're going to start building a house. And so the first order of business is make a cabinet. Now you might say, well, wait, shouldn't the first order of business in building a house be, let's build a foundation, and then maybe let's construct some framing. Perhaps we should, after that, do some electrical work. Maybe even before the foundation, we start talking about plumbing. That's probably the first thing. And then we go on from there to, the ceiling and the roof. So this is really important, right? Because when God starts talking about building a tabernacle, he begins with furniture, specifically an ark. Why? Because God is making a crucial point here that everybody misses. Or I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people miss. And that is, the purpose of the tabernacle is for the ark. It's interesting because a lot of people in their religious lives want the tabernacle. They're drawn to the tabernacle. They're enthralled with the tabernacle. But they want to reject the law of Moses, which, by the way, if you reject the law of Moses, where do we get the tabernacle from? Where do the commands of building the tabernacle and the instructions for the tabernacle and the details of the tabernacle, from where do they come? The law of Moses. So it's oxymoronic that you would want to dispense with the law of Moses and yet hold on to what the law of Moses gave you. But putting that aside, because that's a little bit too much to swallow, that's a little bit too cerebral. We want the tabernacle, but we don't want to have the ark inside. The first temple was resplendent with the Shekinah of God. It was manifest, it was loud and proud, it was glorious. The second temple did not have the Shekinah of God. Why? Why did the second temple not have the Shekinah of God? What was the reason? What was the reason? God told them to make the second temple and all of that. So why did the second temple not have the Shekinah of God? Can anybody tell me why? What was the reason that the second temple did not have the Shekinah of God? What was the reason? Why was that the case? That's right, Shoshana Brenner. Ding, 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 ding. The ark was missing. That's right. The ark was missing. No ark, no Shekinah. Remember that the Shekinah rested between the two cherubim that we saw in the picture, right? We bring this picture back up and we see the cherubim that we had on there before. The ark of God, or excuse me, the Shekinah rather, was between these two cherubim. The Shekinah of God, through the process of Zimzum, contracted itself to rest between these two cherubim. And notice the top of the ark here. The top of the ark is what's known as the mercy seat. This is the throne of God. So, no cherubim, no throne, no mercy seat, no Shekinah. So people who want to have the tabernacle but don't want the law of Moses just have an empty shell. It's like one time I don't know why, but somebody it's a long story, but this person went to Israel and they bought tefillin, but I don't know, you'd have to know the person and I'm not going to get into it. But the person bought the tefillin, but there were no scrolls, there was no parchment inside. And I was perplexed. And of course, the person wasn't Jewish, and that's why the person, whoever sold them that, knew that and didn't care. But then I met my friend Avi, who I've known now for 15 years. And I asked Avi, I said, why would somebody sell or buy tefillin that did not have the parchment inside? And I will never forget the look on his face. He looked at me so perplexed, gave me kind of look like, are you stupid? Not that I'm stupid, but just that was his look. And he said, why would anybody do that? He said, a tefillin without the parchment is just what you have is an empty box. Exactly. Because what makes the tefillin holy is not the tefillin, but the parchment inside. And so that's why you have that. Incidentally, let me go back to this picture here. Notice in this picture, and I wonder if it's better depicted in this other picture. Let me see if I can find if this is a better rendition or not. I don't remember if it is or not. Kind of harder to see. Let me go back to the other one. I like the way that it's depicted in this picture, but it's blurrier and more difficult to see. But let's go back to this one. The table of showbread represents in Jewish thought kingship. The golden altar you see in the middle represents priesthood because it has to do with prayer, and that's where the priest would minister. The Ark of the Covenant represented Torah. Okay. All three of these, if you'll notice, have a crown on them. There was in the scripture, it says to make like a crown around them, okay, around the upper part. So you have a crown on the table of showbread. You have a crown as well on the golden altar there, the altar that represents the priesthood. So you have a crown of priesthood, you have a crown of kingship, and then on the Ark of the Covenant, you have a crown as well, and this represents the crown of Torah. And so you have three crowns. Now the sages point out that if we go for the crown of priesthood, we'll have priesthood. If we go for the crown of kingship, we'll have kingship. And so what do you hear people in your life say? I'm just going to point this out. What do you have people in your life saying based on the heretical, blasphemous, errant writings of Hebrews? They want to be kings and priests, kings and priests, kings and priests, kings and priests, right? They want authority and power, cast out demons and all this kind of stuff. Based on what? Because they're following a heretical book. The sages say, don't go for kingship. Don't go for the crown of priesthood, but rather go for the crown of Torah, which is the ark. And if you have the crown of Torah, then you should have the crown of kingship and the crown of priesthood. But you can't go for the crown of Torah if you don't have Torah in your tabernacle. And you can't have the ark without the Torah, because then you just have an empty box. It's a beautiful box. It's a golden box, but it's just a box, right? So you have to be careful about that. Now, one final thing here about the command to build the ark. And this is the last thing I'll mention today. It says, this is again going back to Rabbi Monk's commentary. The command concerning the construction of the Aron is stated in the plural, vayasu, they shall make. This is an exception among the commands pertaining to sacred objects, where vayasita and you shall make is generally used. This indicates that all members of the nation must participate in building the Aron, if only through some symbolic contribution, and if only in thought. The Torah, which is contained in the Aron, is universal. It was given to everyone, and in it, each person must find his portion. Veten helakenu betoratecha. Grant us our share in your Torah. Now, this is powerful. Why? Because of all of the elements, the articles, the furniture of the tabernacle, the only one that we were commanded to make in the plural sense was the ark, to teach us a valuable lesson. That is that the Torah is something that we all must partake in, and it's something that we all must participate in, and we all must take ownership of. End of our Aliyah today. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. I hope that today has been fun and inspirational, and thank you for being a part of it. I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And until we meet again, may you have a blessed, amazing, and powerful day, a day of good news and good fortune. I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow, Bezrat HaShem, as we end the week and end our time in Terumah. Until then, be richly blessed.